And then something shifts that most people never talk about. Not in your channel, not in your analytics, but in your perception of the entire game. Because for the first time, you stop seeing YouTube as a platform you use and start seeing it as an environment you operate within. And that difference, subtle as it sounds, changes how you move completely. Because when you're using a platform, you follow it, you react to it, you adapt after it changes. But when you operate within an environment, you anticipate, you position yourself, you move with awareness instead of reaction. And this awareness becomes your edge, because now you're not just looking at your own content, you're observing the entire ecosystem. What's rising, what's fading, what patterns are repeating. You start noticing how certain formats dominate for a period, then slowly lose impact. How audiences shift their attention without announcing it. How new creators emerge with slightly different approaches. And these observations aren't random. They're signals. Signals that tell you where attention is moving. And once you can read those signals, you're no longer guessing. You're navigating. Now here's where things become even more strategic. Because at this level, timing becomes just as important as execution. The same idea, executed at the wrong time, can underperform. But executed at the right moment, can scale rapidly. And that's why awareness matters. Because timing isn't luck, it's observation. Now imagine this shift. Instead of asking, is this a good idea? You start asking, is this the right time for this idea? And that question alone filters your decisions. Because not every idea needs to be executed immediately. Some need to wait. Some need to evolve. And knowing the difference becomes part of your skill. Now let's go deeper. Because as your understanding expands, your confidence changes. Not in a loud, visible way, but internally. You stop second-guessing every decision. You trust your process, your system, your ability to adapt, and that trust removes hesitation. Because hesitation slows execution. And in a fast-moving environment, speed matters. But here's the balance. Speed without clarity creates mistakes. And clarity without speed creates missed opportunities. So you learn to combine both, moving quickly, but intentionally. Now here's something most people overlook. At this stage, your biggest competition isn't other creators anymore. It's complacency. Because once you reach a certain level of success, the urgency that once drove you begins to fade. Not completely, but enough to affect your edge. And losing that edge, even slightly, can slow your growth. Not dramatically, but gradually. So you stay aware, not just of the platform, but of yourself, your habits, your discipline, your focus. Because maintaining success requires as much attention as building it. Now imagine this moment. You look at your system, your channels, your growth, and everything feels stable, predictable. And while that stability is valuable, it can also be limiting. Because growth thrives on challenge, on pushing boundaries, on stepping slightly beyond what feels comfortable. So you introduce controlled risk, testing new formats, exploring new niches, not randomly, but strategically. Because evolution doesn't happen by accident. It happens by design. Now here's where another layer reveals itself. Impact. Because as your system grows, your influence expands. Not just in numbers, but in reach. Your content travels further, reaches more people. And with that reach comes responsibility. Because what you create shapes perception, guides attention, influences decisions. And recognizing that changes how you approach your work. Because now, it's not just about performance. It's about purpose. Not in an abstract way, but in a practical one. Creating content that not only attracts, but delivers, that not only engages, but adds value. Because long-term success isn't built on attention alone. It's built on trust. And trust is built over time, through consistency, through reliability, through delivering what you promise. Now let's take a step back from where you started, from that first uncertain upload, to this point, where you're operating with clarity, with structure, with control, and you realize something. The journey wasn't about reaching a destination. It was about developing a way of thinking, a way of seeing systems, patterns, opportunities. Because once you think this way, you're no longer limited to one platform, one niche, one strategy. You can adapt. You can rebuild. You can expand. Because the core skill isn't content creation. It's understanding how attention works and how to build systems around it. And that skill doesn't disappear. It evolves. It strengthens. It compounds. Now, as you move forward, the focus becomes sharper. Not just growth, but mastery. Refining every part of your system. Strengthening every layer. Ensuring that what you've built doesn't just work, but continues to work through changes, through challenges, through time. Because in the end, the real power of this journey isn't in the numbers. It's in the control, the ability to create, scale, and sustain without depending on visibility, without relying on chance, but through understanding, through structure, through deliberate action. And when you reach that point, you're no longer chasing results. You're defining them.